How do you arrest an armed person?
The names of the people that are involved in this, they are well known.
The problem is really a significant problem.
Ilikuwa nawekwa as if ni mtu alikuwa anapanga kuni.
January 2013, another poaching incident. This time at the Tsavo East National Park. A group of poachers kill a family of 12 elephants, had all the time to chop off the ivory tusks, numbering about 22. Despite an aerial and ground manhunt for the poachers, they managed to get away. The ivory tusks are said to have weighed between 70 and 90 kilograms, a bulky undertaking for the poachers said to be on foot. During the same year, 30 rhinos from a rapidly disappearing generation are killed in various national parks and rhino sanctuaries across the country. And just this year, at least 5 rhinos have been killed between January 2014 and March at one of the smallest and most protected parks in the country, Nakuru National Park. That is only a conservative estimate, as insiders say the numbers could be as high as 10. The killings coming in the wake of the more shocking poaching of 2 rhinos killed at the Nairobi National Park, one that houses the headquarters of the Kenya Wildlife Service. But the real story of poaching, it appears, goes beyond just the few parks controlled by KWS. Some 196 kilometers away from Nairobi, at the privately owned Solio Ranch, where both animal and man have died in equally mysterious circumstances. The ranch that sits on a 17,500-acre reserve, 22 kilometers north of Nyeri town, is one of the most protected in the country and is home to a rare breed of rhinos. The number of rhinos in the sanctuary is unclear, but the number of those killed in the recent months has alarmed both the government and animal lovers alike. Kenya has just over 1,000 rhinos from a respectable population of 24,000 decades ago. But the menace of poaching has brought with it an equally disturbing turn of events, the mysterious killing of people described as poachers. But are they? KTN's investigation starts right inside the ranch and spreads to other 3 national parks in the country. Lucy WANGUI delivers a baby boy at Nyeri Provincial Hospital. The father to the newborn child, George Nderitu, asked for some time off to attend to the arrival of a new family member. 2 days later, Lucy WANGUI says the husband received a call.
Around saa 5:30 to saa 6 hapo akapigiwa simu. Akatoka nje kwa sababu hapa kunanga network, akachukulia simu pale nje. Na nikasikia akisema sema mudia. Then I think huyo mtu akamwambia ako town, juu akamuuliza uko town? Akamwambia nipe 30 minutes nikuje. After that akakuja, akaenda bathroom, akaoga. Then after amekaka tena, huyo mtu still akampigia tena. Akamuuliza ama ametoka kwa nyumba. Yeye akamwambia hajatoka, lakini akamwambia nimetoka, niko hapa nakuja, lakini hakuwa ametoka. Yeye akamwambia ukikuja unipate whispers back. Akamuuliza ati nini? Nikupate whispers? Akamwambia nakuja saa hii.
Leaving a 2-day-old son under the care of his wife, Nderitu, a police officer attached to Central Bank Nyeri branch, was reported officially missing.
Kitu saa 4 nikamgoja hakuji. Kitu saa 6 ndio nikafikiria nichukue simu nimpigie. Nikapata kwa mteja. Nikajaribu hiyo line nyingine, still mteja. Nikafikiria hapa juu hakunanga network, wacha nipigie brother yake amjaribu, inaweza kuwa huku ni network hakuna. Saa hiyo kulikuwa around saa 7 ya usiku, then akanipigia kaniambia ako mteja.
A day later, the body of George Nderitu was discovered at Nyeri Provincial Hospital mortuary. He had been shot and killed 22 kilometers away inside Solio Ranch. The body of William Gishoi Kariuki was also booked alongside that of George Nderitu. The media had a day earlier been told that the two were notorious poachers, gunned down as they tried to kill rhinos in the expansive ranch and sanctuary. But it is the details of these killings and many others that have put a spotlight on the ranch and several of the country's national parks. The 75-acre Solio Ranch has been divided into two major areas. The outer ranch that takes up much of the space is expansive but is ringed off with an electric fence. The inner ranch, referred to as the Rhino Sanctuary, is 69 square kilometers and has an electric fence as well. The sanctuary has a watchtower, has satellite KWS tents manned by armed KWS rangers, and according to many observers, it is virtually impossible for an amateur to boldly gain access to the bigger ranch, let alone the Rhino Sanctuary. George Nderitu and William Gishoi were gunned down not inside the Rhino Sanctuary, but outside it. Just like the other suspected poachers killed in the protected wildlife zone. Indeed, no suspected poacher has been killed inside the sanctuary where the rhinos are. The family says the killing was suspect, a theory supported by an independent team of police investigators.
Hiyo mili kulingana na vile inspector mtoto alikuta, kwa maana hatukuikuta pale, tayari ilikuwa imepelekwa kwa moshari. Ilikuwa nawekwa asifu ni mtu alikuwa anapanga kuni. Mwili moja pale na ile ingine.
KTN has obtained statements penned by Kenya Wildlife Rangers who took part in the killing of the suspected poachers. According to the statement seen exclusively by the Inside Story, about 9 Kenya Wildlife Service Rangers were on duty on the night in question. They say they were on patrol inside the Rhino Sanctuary when they heard gunshots. One of the rangers says he fired twice in the air to scare away would-be intruders. The ranger says, while on the way to Kongoni area where the gunshots were originating from, they again had 2 more gunshots. The account says the team then positioned itself in a bush and saw 2 men approaching, one of them carrying a firearm. The ranger does not say if the man tried to fire at him, but they opened fire all the same, killing the 2 on the spot. The ranger says he fired 15 rounds of ammunition and that 1 poacher managed to escape. A second ranger on this part says he fired at the 2 men, one carrying a firearm, but this was after his boss directed him through a police pocket phone to a likely position where the poachers were. But multiple accounts and investigations by pathologists suggest there was no shootout between the suspected poachers and the game rangers. In fact, our investigations indicate the 2 suspected poachers might have been killed elsewhere and their bodies brought to the scene of the murder. Our investigations traced the last moments of the 2 slain men and spoke to an expert who spent 5 hours with their bodies. The Inside Story has learned that the man who lured George Nderitu to his death traveled to Nyeri a day before the police officer attached to Central Bank was killed. George Nderitu met the man in the company of 2 others at a Nyeri terminus in Nyeri town. Nderitu was picked up by a vehicle registered under a high-profile parastato. The last place George Nderitu was traced to was Gadare Hill area, several kilometers from Nyeri town. That was about 8 p.m. It wasn't until the following day that the body of George Nderitu and that of William Gishoi were found inside Solio Ranch. But curiously, the 2 suspected poachers, William Gishoi, the man killed alongside George Nderitu, had never met in life. The family says it is yet to understand how the 2 ended up dead on an alleged poaching mission.
Watu wale said, yes, Gishoi ni poacher. lakini walikuwa wamemweka mahali kama kikingi, ndio wamgoge risasi 4 the same place, ndio halafu wamwaguche chini.
An autopsy conducted on George Nderitu's body reveals a bizarre killing.
But the clothes and the body showed gunshot wounds. He was mildly decomposed. They were not wet and they were not muddy. Yes, they weren't. The clothes were clean. Yes. Of course, they had blood. They had blood because of the bleeding from the wounds. Yes.
The night the two were shot and killed, it had rained. But dry clothes indicated that the two might have been killed elsewhere and their bodies ferried to the ranch. The family pathologist told KTN's Inside Story that the pattern of bullet holes on the chest of the two slain men were consistent with victims killed at point-blank range.
It was clear for us that because the clothes and part of the body had burning, which is really products of the bullet, that he was shot from a very close distance, at least within 6 inches. So a very close distance.
An expert opinion that rules out an ambush by KWS Rangers that night.
There was obviously discrepancy in the heights. It's not like they were shooting at one another from one level. He was at a much lower level. And it's even likely that this guy was lying on his back, facing up. And then because of the small twists and turns, that explains the pattern of the bullets.
One KWS officer says he fired 15 rounds of ammunition. A second officer said he fired 14 rounds of ammunition, but only 4 spent cartridges were collected from the scene of the ambush. The distance between KWS Rangers and the two people they gunned down was less than 10 meters. The distance between the two shot men were less than 3 meters apart. Nderitu was killed by high-caliber firearm, while a man he had never met in life was felled by a handgun. Did the two KWS Rangers have all the time to select which man to kill in a split-second ambush?
Exchange of fire is out of question, in my expert opinion. This is homicide. This is homicide. This is extrajudicial killing.
Also, there was no blood drained from the bodies of the slain men at the scene of the shooting incident. Their jackets had burnt marks indicating they were shot at point-blank range. KWS Rangers told the police they recovered a G3 rifle and 7 rounds of ammunition. With only 4 spent cartridges recovered from a shootout lasting 30 minutes, the killings raise eyebrows. Who wanted the Central Bank police officer dead? Nderitu was a marksman, having won an award last year in a police shooting competition at Kiganjo Police Training College. It is now imagined that among the people lured George Nderitu was a former provincial administrator and a serving government official. One of the two men has in the past been a subject of private investigations of alleged links to poaching activities. Is there something that Nderitu and his colleague knew?
Hii risasi yote kama yote imemiminywa kwa mwili ya binadamu, kwani huyu binadamu hakuwa na damu? Kwa maana kuna any blood stains.
Bona every time Sorio tukisikia ati kuna watu waligogwa, lazima kunasemekana kama ile pebe ilienda. Mara tu pebe ikisemekana ilienda, ujue kuna mtu aliuawa moja na mmoja ametoroka. Na hao watu hawagogagi yule ameenda na ile pebe, wanagogaga huyu hana.
2 weeks later, on the second week of February 2014, Kenya Wildlife Rangers report another shooting incident. 2 suspected poachers trying to gain access to Soli Ranch are shot and killed. The Inside Story joins the local police boss now tasked with investigating the botched poaching. The escape route that was allegedly used by the 68-year-old Joshua Ngatia and 47-year-old Samuel Nduiga. The distance between the scene where they gained entry into the ranch and where they were shot is more than 5 kilometers. The exit route has since been sealed off, but the repaired fence suggests that not even a small animal will have sneaked its way through it. The two are the latest victims who have been felled by KWS bullets, but analysts say something does not add up. This is the reason why. The two Kenya Wildlife Rangers first heard the gunshots at 12:30 am, and it wasn't until 1 hour later that they spotted the two men, one carrying a rifle. They opened fire, killing the two on the spot. The two slain men were lying 4 meters apart. The distance between the bodies and the gun they were allegedly carrying was 3 meters away. According to a senior police officer who visited the scene, spent cartridges were close to the bodies of the two slain men, suggesting that maybe those who shot them were so close to their target. Autopsy reports confirmed the two were shot several times, with some bullets exiting through the chests, an indication they might have been shot while fleeing. KWS Rangers are told the police they killed the two after they engaged them in a gunfight. KTN has not independently established if indeed the two men were on a poaching mission, but past and latest incidents suggest a worrying pattern. As we drive on the expansive Solio Ranch Sanctuary, one gets an impression that it's perhaps one of the most protected areas in the country. But the latest killings raise eyebrows, and it has all got to do with the location where the bodies of those killed are discovered.
Today it's Derito, tomorrow is one of them or their relative. Then they will know the pain of what they have done. Oh yes.
The last 2 months, 6 suspected poachers have been killed under unclear circumstances. All the killings have taken place outside the protected rhino sanctuary, yet the poaching itself happens right inside the rhino sanctuary. When it happens, poachers have the time to kill rhinos, chop off their horns, and walk away. Between February and August 2013, 10 rhinos were killed inside the rhino sanctuary in the bloodiest of poaching incidents in the country. But it's the killing of 2 rhinos on the 10th of July 2013 that has since had heads turning. Scene of crime photos show 2 rhinos killed yards apart. The horns of the white rhinos have been chopped off. The killing occurred just 150 meters away from a Kenya Wildlife Satellite Camp. The white spots on the photos is the number of cartridges at the scene of the rhino killings. One rhino was shot 6 times. Police officers who visited the scene told KTN's Inside Story it will have been impossible for the rangers not to have heard the gunshots. KWS Rangers are stationed right inside the rhino sanctuary. What is worrying, every time a rhino is gunned down inside the sanctuary, poachers somehow manage to get away with the rhino horns. What has further unsettled investigators is the gunning down of suspected poachers in raids that KWS refers to as a joint operation involving the General Service Unit personnel and their own. But the Inside Story has discovered that the GSU have not since last year been involved in joint operations with the KWS Rangers. Gunning down of poachers has been carried out exclusively by the KWS. The Inside Story stays in Solio Ranch, where killings can only be linked to people who know the rhino sanctuary well. Poachers and Butchers continues shortly. KTN's inside story has no conclusive evidence to exonerate the 4 people killed at Solio Ranch from poaching activities, but the mystery around their death and seemingly coordinated killing of rhinos across the country point to a much bigger plot. May 23rd last year, rhino is shot and killed at Nakuru National Park. 3 days later, another rhino is gunned down in Ngulia Rhino Sanctuary in Tsavo National Park. A day later, yet another rhino is shot and killed in Meru National Park. 2 days later, poachers make another bold statement by gunning down 3 more rhinos at a conservancy in Nairobi. In the poaching incidents, which seemed to be well orchestrated, not a single suspect was arrested. KTN has come across information that might point to a possible cover-up in some of the killings in the country's national parks and rhino sanctuaries. Is it that those who have been gunned down knew something that masters of the poaching syndicate feared? They will reveal.
Hao watu walikuja wakanikuta nyumbani.
The man who still fears for his own safety was arrested and later set free after spending more than 1 year in custody. But his story will explain why several suspected poachers might have been killed under unclear circumstances in the country's rhino sanctuaries.
Kaniambia, jamaa umekaa umesota sana. Si tuende nikuonyeshe mahali kuna pesa. Sasa akaniambia siuze ng'ombe moja. Twende nikutembeze nini? Nikuonyeshe mahali unaweza ona pesa. Nikamwambia ni sawa. Mimi nikauza ng'ombe. Alafu tukatoka hapo tukaenda na yeye, tukateremka na yeye. Tukafika Narumoro town. Tukakaa hapo, kutoka hapo tukateremka huko pande ya chini ya Soli.
He claims he and his friend were given a safe passage into Solio Ranch, but after parting with some cash, after walking for more than 2 kilometers inside the ranch, they were shot at.
Sasa hapo ndio walianza kutupiga marisasi, kunirushia marisasi. Sasa mimi nikaingia kwa mtaro.
The man says he fell into a ditch, and after the guns fell silent, he heard a man asking his fellow rangers to spare him.
Mimi wakati nilianguka pale, kuna askari alikuja hapo Mugikuyu. Huyo ndiye alisema msimuue. Kwanza juu tumeshika yeye, wacha kumuua. Wacha tupeleke yeye huko. Yaani tupeleke huko kotini baada ya kuua.
He says he recalls seeing the same friend who had promised them a safe passage into the protected area shooting at him. It appears the arrival of the boss did not help matters. The man was arrested and later booked at the local police station before being transferred the same night to another station. The man was later charged before a court with 3 counts, among them being in possession of a G3 rifle. But there is an additional charge that baffled even investigators. He was accused of hunting rhinos a whole 2 months before he was arrested. KTN has checked the occurrence book of his local police station and discovered that KWS had not booked a report at the station about a suspect who had been spotted hunting rhinos and later escaped. The same was not done by the GSU. It will later emerge that the man was arraigned in court with a fictitious charge sheet that had a totally different police and occurrence book number, where the 2 victims lured into the park to be killed. The man's case tallies with what has become a standard procedure around reported cases in the country's wildlife sanctuaries. Every time rhinos are killed, an announcement comes about suspected poachers having been killed weeks or days later. Conversation with insiders suggests that many of the sanctuaries, such as Solio, are so well protected that it is virtually impossible for an outsider with no knowledge of its terrain to venture inside the sanctuary and kill a rhino. But multiple interviews conducted by the Inside Story suggest that many of the men killed inside the parks are lured there to act as a cover-up for the real poachers who then come and walk away with the rhino horns.
An armed person, regardless of whether he is inside or outside the park, you will not arrest an armed person because he will kill you. The only way you have to do is you challenge him to stop, and the next moment he fires at you. When he fires at you, the only way you can save yourself is to fire back. If you are, because we are trained men, our people are marksmen. If they shoot them, even if they are outside there, that is in defense. How do you arrest an armed person?
Solio Ranch has lost dozens of rhinos in the past 5 years, despite the presence of KWS and GSU personnel manning the ranch round the clock. Poachers somehow managed to gain access into the ranch. The local police stations that have taken up investigations into the alarming rate of poaching have complained on several occasions that some crime scenes are often tampered with, but it's not clear to what end. Junior officers complain that at times officers who have taken part in shooting suspects have been unable to account for the number of ammunition they have expended while confronting suspects. Most of the time, the number of bullets fired do not correspond with the number of cartridges collected from the scene of shootings. Guns recovered from the scene are rarely test fired to confirm if they were indeed used during a shootout. Rusty guns such as this recovered a month ago raise eyebrows. The gun is muddy, but other items recovered from the suspects are clean. Located in an urban setting, the park is home to 65 different mammal species, among them the rare white and black rhinos. The story of poaching in the expansive park reads like that of an organization that is doing everything possible to protect the wildlife in the face of an equally determined group of poachers. In the past 1 month alone, 5 rhinos have been killed in what has been dubbed as one of the most protected national parks in the country. Kenya Wildlife Service rangers can, from a distance, watch over the rare animals, but somehow poachers are having a field day. The park has 70 KWS rangers on any given night, watching over the most hunted animals, but poaching continues to dog one of Kenya's most prized tourist attractions. Only last year, the park lost a staggering 12 rhinos to poachers, but the number of poachers arrested has been near zero.
We have rangers about, let's say maybe about 30 blocks, 2 rangers each, just making sure that the rhinos here are safe.
ADAN, who moved here 6 months ago from his previous posting, says the price of the rhino horn, now standing at approximately 20 million shillings, is driving more poachers into the park.
Poachers that we are dealing with have got networks in other counties, let's say Nairobi, Nyeri, as far as maybe Tanzania. So the net of this poaching is quite wide.
On the 14th of January 2014, 2 black rhinos, a male and a female, were shot and killed inside the protected park by unknown poachers. The poachers failed to walk away with the rhino horns. Exactly a month later, another rhino was shot and killed, but this time round the poachers managed to walk away with the rhino horn. A day later, poachers struck again, making away with the rhino horn. No poacher was arrested. But it will get worse. Shortly after, 2 other rhinos were killed near a hotel in the park. The rhinos were shot and killed less than 200 meters from a structure that houses a rhino unit. By the time the rangers were getting the scene of the shooting, the poachers had managed to get away with the horns. No one was arrested. By the time KTN was working on this story, the park had experienced the killing of yet another rhino. The most recent killing taking place at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, just meters away from a rhino unit headquarters where surveillance and intelligence officials are housed. It was the most daring attack on a rapidly declining species of animals. 3 weeks later, a suspected poacher was gunned down inside the park. Senior KWS personnel told the media that 2 other suspected poachers managed to escape. The body of the only suspect killed in the operation is removed from the scene of the shooting before the media briefing. According to KWS officials here, arrows and other personal items were recovered from the suspects. The killing of the suspected poachers coming barely 3 weeks after a rhino was shot and killed. The senior warden here says he inherited a security structure that had undergone a shake-up. An entire security team of 30 rangers of a crack unit tasked with containing cases of poaching was suspended. The entire team was sent home after cases of bold poaching became rampant in the park last year. Most of those suspended have been reinstated, and poaching is yet to stop. Among those suspended is Andrew Mwaka, a Kenya Wildlife Service ranger who has since gone missing. His sudden disappearance mirrors the mystery of poaching and suspect killings at Solio Ranch. Andrew Mwaka reported to Nakuru National Park sometime in 2001 until he was transferred to Nasolot National Park and later moved to Kitale. In May last year, Andrew was suspended from work.
Kutoka last year, May, aliniambia ati kumesemekana huku kwa ndovu zinauliwa and wana suspect it's an inside story. So wamesimamisha some of the workers na wana investigate stories za poaching.
So alikuambia alikuwa poacher?
Hakuniambia alikuwa poacher, lakini aliniambia ni suspect, amesuspectiwa na wameambiwa watakuwa na report Nairobi every after 2 weeks.
Andrew moved to Nakuru where his family has been putting up until January 27th, 2014.
Sasa akatoka hapa some few minutes to 5 in the morning, akatoka akaenda. The whole day to communicate. So from there kurudi jioni.
On the day he disappeared, he had called a friend to inform him that he had been reinstated back to work. Andrew was a junior officer and was among an entire group of 32 rangers sent packing last year. The day Andrew disappeared, he was last seen inside this small pub less than 1,000 meters away from his house in Lunga Lunga Estate in Nakuru. A bar attendant told the family members that the KWS ranger left the pub around 11 p.m. that Monday. The witness says a vehicle without a registration number plate pulled over outside the bar just as Andrew was stepping out. Andrew Mwaka was seen chatting with the men inside the vehicle before boarding it. That was the last time he was seen. Correspondence between him and senior KWS officials has also raised suspicion among his colleagues. Was Andrew some sort of informer, or was he an errand boy for senior officers? KWS senior staff have told KTN that Andrew Mwaka was not linked to poaching. So just where is the father of one 2 months on?
Mpaka sasa hakuna kitu imepatikana. Sijui siwezi nafikiria inafika mwisho sijui anaweza kuwa yuko wapi.
Exit Nakuru National Park, enter Savo East National Park. The park is the biggest wildlife sanctuary in the country. But it is also here that some of the most daring episodes of poaching have been reported. July 7, 2013, a pilot flying over the Savo National Park notices elephants making runs in the park. The pilot radios his office and in turn the office notifies KWS personnel. By the time KWS officials arrived at the scene, 12 elephants, among them one calf, had been shot dead. Initial investigations pointed to a group of about 10 poachers, all armed with heavy weaponry. 1 year later, KWS has an explanation.
We have made some inroads and something is being done because we appear to have stumbled on very crucial information much later as to who some of the gangs that could have been involved in that.
The failed animals had decomposed by the time local media teams were getting to the scene of one of the most shocking poaching incidents in the recent history. Francis MAINA is a security consultant and has followed the poaching saga for many years now.
The matter I've questioned, the matter I've done on research, they were sedated by people who have veterinary knowledge.
For instance, how did the poachers manage to herd together 12 elephants before gunning them down? Just what kind of powerful weapons did they have to instantly kill 12 elephants on roughly the same spot? Further, experts say It is suspect that the grounds where the animals were killed on were not disturbed. Were the animals sedated before being killed? And if they were, who had the capacity, skill and time to do it? If indeed the men had guns, how did they manage to carry with them more than 12 ivory tusks, each weighing approximately 40 to 50 kilograms?
How can you be in the park, you kill even one elephant? It's have 2 tusks, about 80 kilos. How far can you walk with 80 kilos on your shoulder?
The Inside Story can authoritatively report that the country has only 11 kingpins behind the country's largest onslaught on rhinos and elephants. The masterminds run an enterprise of recruiters, facilitators, transporters, and gunmen under the noses of intelligence and security officers. The men are known to authorities. The National Intelligence Service knows them. The National Security Advisory Committee, the highest security organ in the country, has the list. The Kenya Wildlife Service Board has been furnished with their details. Nothing has moved. Documents seen by KTN indicate that the group operates a well-organized cartel that has roots both within and without Kenyan borders. They are mostly Kenyan nationals with foreigners as their wingmen. The group has designated gunmen, drivers, low-level handlers, those who go into the parks to kill, and those whose task is to ferry ivory trophies. KTN has established that one of the kingpins, with one of his names as Mushina, is based in central Kenya. The man has an official security detail. National Police Service officers are attached to him. It is not clear why the man linked to almost every rhino killed in the country has police officers guarding him around the clock. The man has international connections to Uganda, Tanzania, and beyond. He has been linked to several suspects arrested with ivory tusks in the past. Mushina has assistants in Nyeri town. The assistants are known to law enforcement agents. Has another assistant who coordinates poaching in Oljogi, Nanyuki, and Solio ranches. The man whose name has come up on several arrests involving poachers has another assistant in Loitoktok who coordinates poaching for him in Amboseli, Loitoktok, and Chilu. Last year, Mushina was linked to ivory seized in Rift Valley. Efforts by a provincial administrator to have those arrested released led to the transfer, but that is as far as it went. Mushina, whose second name KTN has, still walks around a free man. Mushina is described as a fast recruiter and corrupter. In his team is former KWS employees and junior staff of national parks and rhino sanctuaries. The man has a facilitator who sources firearms for him in Nanyuki. Mushina has a marksman in his camp. The man has connections to either other gunmen in Isiolo and has spread his network to other national parks all over the country. The government is aware about the group, but again, nothing seems to be stopping them. Mushina's enterprise is not without drivers. The government, for instance, knows about a vehicle which has been ferrying rhino horns and is connected to almost all the poaching incidents in Nanyuki town. The vehicle's registration number plate is with intelligence networks. No one appears interested in arresting a man described as a mastermind. What is shocking, attempts by Kenya Wildlife Service security teams to have the man arrested and questioned have been met by a reluctant parent ministry. KWS personnel have been able to trace payments from those arrested with rhino horns to Mushina, but despite informing the government about it, the state, it appears, has looked the other way. The same documents prepared by investigators are now in the custody of several government security agencies identify a second kingpin. One of his names is Galgalo. The enterprise has capitalized on the laxity of intelligence networks of building profiles around masterminds and their handlers. Galgalo, just like Mushina, comes across as a successful businessman. The two only communicate with those engaged in the recruitment of potential poachers. A poacher can be paid as little as 100,000 shillings, and his job ends the moment he delivers the ivory. For instance, the man transacted more than 18 million shillings in a month to non-low-level handlers, but is still walking free, and the animals are still dying in their numbers. Documents in the possession of several government agencies and which KTN has seen indicate the man has linked to serving and fired KWS officials in most national parks and rhino sanctuaries across the country. Senior officials at KWS won't speak on record for fear of reprisals. The officials have told the inside story that poaching won't stop and their own personnel won't stop giving information to potential poachers as long as the man who has created the biggest demand for rhino horns is not stopped. No one has stopped him yet. The same documents prepared by investigators are now in the custody of several government security agencies. Identify a second kingpin. One of his names is Galgalo, a retired government official who runs several businesses in the country. The man has created the second largest demand network for rhino horns in the country. The government, it appears, knows about the former employees of KWS and serving ones that know something about poaching and have links to both leading kingpins.
If you look at the rhinos, most of the rhinos have either one-on-one ranger or 1 to 2, and the rangers know them where they are in most of the cases. Some have a GPS, tracking device put on their ears or their neck. So when it comes to the killing, it is so disgusting and very hurting that they try to explain things which don't add up.
The group is organized in such a way that when rogue elements, still serving or already dismissed from security agencies, disclose the exact location of a rhino to them, non-marksmen enter the parks, gun down rhinos and elephants. Most of the time, those who kill the rhinos do not leave the national parks with their guns. A handler will be waiting in a motorcycle to ferry the poachers to a particular location. Having been paid in advance, the rhino horn will change hands with another middle-level handler. Using official and personal private vehicles, the poachers are able to beat a struggling intelligence system in KWS. The rhino horn will find its way to the high-level dealer. If the trail by a struggling KWS intelligence team goes cold, the rhino horn will be transported by road to Uganda before it leaves the country by air. In the event the intelligence teams get wind of the poachers, the rhino horn is reduced to powder, packaged as milk powder, and easily leaves the country. The poaching ring has standby drivers, game rangers, those who supply them with night vision equipment, ammunition, and exact location of rhino horns. Yet, despite intelligence agencies tracing poachers to their masters, senior government officials have been reluctant in investigating the forces behind the ringleaders.
We know the names of the people that are involved in this. They are well known. And there is no doubt that until such time as that is addressed and those people are investigated and subsequently prosecuted if there is enough information, it is no doubt, or there is no doubt in my mind, that we will continue to fight this battle and this war that we're fighting.
Communication between senior directors at KWS and top ministry officials reveals a frustrated lot. For instance, Kenya Wildlife Service has only 975 rangers taking care of animals around the country. The government has cleverly been fronting a figure of 2,500 rangers, which is an entire Kenya Wildlife Service workforce.
And if this thing does not go unchecked for the next 5 years, I think the parks will become farmland because nobody will be there. No animal will be there.
Conservationists are now warning that Kenya is on a slippery slope.
If we don't stop this in the very near future, elephant in this country could also be relegated to those very small areas where they are highly protected, like somewhere on LEWA. But an animal like that requires such a huge landscape in which to live.
The country has slightly over 1,000 black and white rhinos, with LEWA Conservancy accounting for a large percentage of the most sought after black rhinos. Experts are warning that if something is not done and done fast, the number of elephants in the world that is said to be standing at only 500,000 will virtually be wiped out in the next 10 years.
If we live in denial and refuse to accept that we have that problem, that for me only adds to the complexity and the severity of the crisis.
The government has set up yet another task force, this time to investigate the growing cases of poaching that appears to be outsmarting government agencies. But for now, the poachers continue to have a field day, and their accomplices appear eager to butcher unsuspecting Kenyans to uncover their tracks in high-stakes trade that thrives in the wild. Dennis Onsarigo for the Inside Story.